Okay, well, happy Friday as I'm recording this. We are, well, let me, actually, I'm not even showing it yet. So let me fix that. Blam. There we go. We are looking at, and it probably would help if I got to the front of it, Forlorn Raiders of the Forlorn God by Andrea Tupac Mollica and Veronica Wu. This is from, I think it's Hellwinter Forge of Wonders. They were kind enough to send this to me. There was no, I mean, I think I need to just keep saying it. I should probably make up some boilerplate that I can throw somewhere. They sent this to me. They've been very nice and sent me a few digital things in the past. They sent this to me with no strings attached, and of course I have not looked at it, read it, even really. I think the most I did was I scrolled to see basically how long it was. They didn't ask me to do anything with it. They just said, "Hey, I just sent it to you because they could like it," and that was it. So here we go. But I will mark it as promotional after the stream. I think before we get into the meat of it, might as well read the back of the box, so to speak, back of the book. Raiders of the Forlorn God. I think glasses for this. The wizard Azarhorn has hired you to escort him to the Cenotaph of the Forlorn God, where a fabulous treasure awaits you. You heard something about the sinister fame surrounding the place, but the wizard promised you a good reward and all the riches you can plunder, enough to dismiss all doubts and fears. You just arrived at the village of Greyven, nothing more than a bunch of stone houses a few miles away from your final destination. You have the time to supply, then you'll have to leave for the Cenotaph and the perils awaiting you inside. Raiders of the Forlorn God is a level 4 to 6 adventure that pitches your party against the dangers of a mysterious underground complex where things are not what they seem. All right, so there's our summary. This chair, I've been test driving this chair, which is actually going to be my daughter's desk chair, but she doesn't have a desk yet. And I like it a lot. I actually find it more comfortable than my other chairs. If you've noticed, it's been absent if you're a follower of the channel, but I notice it creaks. So apologies if you're hearing kind of creaking noises. That's the chair, not my old limbs, or maybe both. In terms of contents, we've got 3 outdoor locations: the village of Greyven, the obelisk sanctuary in the Haunted Hills, a 17 area, 2-level dungeon of the Forlorn God, 9 new monsters, 7 pre-generated characters, gorgeous original artwork and cartography by Veronica Wu, and a soundtrack to play during the game. If you I downloaded this from DriveThru, which gives you a zip file with all that stuff packaged within. I have not had a chance to listen to the soundtrack or do anything of that. I'll probably do some kind of capsule review of this afterwards, and maybe I'll give the soundtrack a listen before I go. This is also for old school essentials, in case you were wondering. All right, what have we got? Now, as is my wont of late, that I kind of had to go back to my old ways with the Isle, which I reviewed before this in terms of reading everything. I'm hoping to go back to more of a try to pick up the high bits and not go through every single paragraph. I do want to read the introduction. I think that to me is important. Oops. Okay. Let's see what the intro has to say. Raiders of the Forlorn God is a short adventure that should last 2 or 3 game sessions. The characters will escort the wizard Azarhorn in exploring the Cenotaph of the Forlorn God, an underground sanctuary dedicated to a deity whose memory has faded in the seas of time. And then we have a little boxed out, highlighted text, or yeah, I guess boxed text, called Forlorn Lore. The Cenotaph is, in truth, a mystical prison. In the age of yore, lawful clerics bound the deity with mystical chains and built an underground prison filled with dangers to prevent anyone from freeing the nameless evil. Azarhorn has promised the party decent reward, plus anything they wish to raid in the sanctuary. He tells the party he's looking for a fabulous treasure of gold adorning the god statue somewhere in the Cenotaph. In truth, he plans to retrieve the god chains and kill the characters once they are unnecessary to him. But our heroes are unaware of the wizard's cruel scheme, just as Azarhorn has no idea how dangerous it is to free the Forlorn God from the god chains. God chains, I have to say, that's a pretty cool thing. I'm down with the god chains, just in terms of just as a concept. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they are yet. All right, and I think the thing to keep in mind here, this seems like the setup seems to be like a one shot. I mean, he didn't say it's a one shot or a two shot, right? But it's a 2 to 3 game sessions. Also, the setup seems like it's very much something that either this would be the start of a campaign or a con game or something like that, because you're not the party, at least the setup have so far is, hey, they've already taken the job, they're basically preparing to go, so we don't have the decisions. If I was going to slot this in a campaign, I have to rework it a little bit, because they're not going to wake up and magically just be here. You'd want to seed more about, well, what are they, who is Azarhorn, and how do they get to the party, and how do the negotiations go, blah blah blah, right? We have to play that. In this case, we're saying, you know what, you're already here, which is the perfect sort of beginning of a campaign or one shot kind of premise. We're not going to worry about the meet in the tavern and blah blah blah. Nope, you're here, which is all good. But we just keep it in mind, depending on what you end up wanting to use this module for, that you may need to do a little bit of work on your end if you're gonna add it to a more open-ended campaign. So we've got a synopsis here, and I like these synopses. So there's 4 scenes. First, the village of Greyven, and this is for kind of equipping and getting some local rumors. I kind of like this. I know there's a big thing to just start at the dungeon, and I dig that too. But I also sometimes like, depends on the table and the time frame and all that, to have a chance to be like, okay, we know we're going to the dungeon. That's already been established. But now that we have that out of the way, or now that we've set that, right, we have that's our goal. Go to the dungeon, and we have an idea what the dungeon is, and we've been told kind of what the setup is with Azarhorn. Now, this is a player. This lets me kind of do some of the prep work. Well, what do I think I need? I don't necessarily need to do that in character creation. If we were doing this kind of as a one-shot, I can okay, I may have thought about what I want, and now I have a chance to kind of reset. I think the rumors is always fun. You could maybe even add in some intrigues if you wanted to in this village section. So then we have an area that's optional called the Sanctuary. This is a sanctuary that the characters can visit, but I guess don't have to, whose obelisk can provide worthy clues for the adventure. So it's an optional location with some stuff. Information. The hills. In this stretch of wilderness separating Greyven from the Cenotaph of the Forlorn God, a random encounter happens. All right, so I guess this third area is basically, I guess we're not doing it as a hex crawl. I guess we think of it more as a point crawl. That you're crawling. We're not gonna get lost. To get from Greyven to the Cenotaph is a certainty. But this hills area is where, I guess we're not even rolling to see if we get one. You're getting a random encounter. Something's happening in the hills. We don't know quite what's going to happen in the hills, but something is going to happen. Setting the stage, you can set at any hilly location. All right. If you want to play this adventure in the same campaign world as some of their other games, they've got the village of Greyven is located halfway between Blizzard Vale and Rumney, the Empire's capital. Hey, Magnus. Happy Friday. Next section is rewards. To quickly bring players into the heart of the action, the adventure begins with the assumption they've already accepted the job Azarhorn offered them. The wizard is willing to pay a total reward of 1,200 gold pieces. Nothing forbids the referee to roleplay negotiations. In that case, the wizard is willing to go up to 1,800 gold pieces. A referee who deems it appropriate can ask the character leading the negotiations to perform a charisma check. Remember, however, that Azarhorn has no intention of paying the characters. He gives up on his plan and pays his dues only if he believes he has no chance against them. Okay, so we have some notes. You can do that. You can play through the negotiations. So I would say if you're going to start outside it, I don't know. It really depends on how, because your level's 4 to 6. So your party's going to have some, unless they're brand new, they're just level 4 at jump. I would think at that point you might want to set up some more backstory for him, because they might vet him, ask questions, use spells to kind of figure out weal or woe, or I don't know. So I probably, if I was not going to start this, it's kind of an in media res, so to speak, I might want to seed him earlier. So if you were planning to have this in part of your campaign world, and the party, while you're prepping this, maybe the party's finishing something else, maybe seed in a little bit about Azarhorn, and even some of the other stuff, just to kind of give it some extra context. Okay, let's see what we got. Pre-generated characters. We have some notes about Azarhorn. He's a 6th level magic user in his mid-50s. He's got some spells. Resetting the dungeon. After 1 month, all the Forlorn God's dungeon perils reset, and all the creatures revive with full HP. There are 2 exceptions. The Skullmaster, they will remember the characters and accept their challenges no more. Well, we don't know what that is, but no moss, says the Skullmaster. And let's see, the Forlorn God, if the characters slay or free it, the Forlorn God will not return to his prison. All right, but everything else is coming back. Interesting. No, I mean, it's curious. Do we expect that the party will want to come back after a month? But if you want to have this as a living space, or maybe you just like the layout of the dungeon, think somebody else might move in, or any other kind of shenanigans, long-term shenanigans might take place, then, or the party leaves it and has to set. Because remember, in OSE and other games like that, depending on how much magic healing you've got around, it could be a while. So I suppose it's possible that the party could get into part of it, have to withdraw, maybe does some other stuff, and then that month passes. The village of Greyven. We've got an inn, broken mug. We've got an emporium. We've got a hanged man. In the central square, the dead body of a thief hangs from a gallows. The sheriff of Greyven executed him in the morning, according to local custom. He'll leave the body hanging for a couple of days as a warning. Any chaotic spellcaster remembers that according to occult lore, a hangman's little fingers can open a magically locked door. Cutting off the fingers of the dead thief is a chaotic act and must also be carried out without attracting the attention of the local authorities. The fingers, however, prove worthy in some rooms of the temple. Ooh, I like this a lot. I've not heard about this. I don't know if it's something from another story or they just made up, but that is, man, I like it. I like that a lot. It's a chaotic act, so if you're lawful, you should not be doing it. I suppose even neutral, you shouldn't really be doing it. You got to do it without picking up attention, because obviously people are not going to take kindly to you going around to dead bodies and cutting off their fingers. But it actually will have a use. And I would definitely mean, I think, with this text, that if you have a chaotic spellcaster, they're going to know. And this idea that you could have these specialized items that basically, I'm guessing this is kind of in place of the spell. So, for example, the spell Knock opens up magically locked doors, or really any locked doors. And this is a way of saying, okay, if you can get the fingers, little fingers of a hanged man, I suppose, while he's hanging, then it essentially allows you to cast that knock without having the spell. Or maybe it's like having a ritual. You need this, and maybe you need to know some ritual words, or maybe you just know, and then, hey, you can cast knock. I don't know if it takes all the fingers for one, or how that part of it works, but I mean, it'll probably come up when we get into the dungeon. So that's kind of a real cool thing. And I would definitely not treat those like just things in your bag of reagents and stuff. Like, you have to go and get them. But it's a really nice note. And it's, I think, I almost would highlight more. Make sure to tell your party members, if any of them fit that bill, what's up with the fingers. Greyven can rely on a sheriff and 8 guards for safety and justice administration. That's another nice note. So you know how many guys are apt to come running if the party decides to try some chaos. Picking rumors. While the characters hang out in Greyven, there are chances to unlock opportunities to gather information, as shown on the table below. All right, so what do we got here? So there's an old drunkard named Jeff who asked the party to buy them a drink. He's got a rumor. The party buys something at the Emporium, they'll get a rumor, and just asking around, they can get a rumor. And what does Jeff know? Jeff says, "A god doesn't get forlorn for no reason, don't you think? From what I know, of the few idiots who went to the Cenotaph, only a grave robber returned to the village. She was disfigured, maybe by fire or acid. Who knows? She could only stammer a few incoherent words, but I remember she kept saying something about a crystal key." So there you go. A very detailed rumor, right? If your GM, note for players, if your GM starts rattling off a rumor like that, take a note, because it's probably crystal key is maybe going to be important. Where is that grave robber now, though? Is what I want to know. But we don't get any other named personages besides Jeff, the sheriff, Wyla Hazel, and the guard. It might be nice to know where that grave robber is, but presumably maybe they just left town. Womp womp. So sorry for you, that's all you're getting. All right, now at the sanctuary, which is, you can get rumor of the sanctuary from just asking around, right? I think that's correct. The sanctuary lies a couple of miles east of Greyven at the end of a narrow road. The characters find an engraved white stone obelisk 10 feet tall surrounded by thick blackberry bushes. Unfortunately for the characters, 6 mud imps are swarming around the obelisk, eating and polluting the berries with filthy claws. Eating the berries I get, but why do they have to pollute the berries? Come on, guys. Imps. They attack the characters if they try to drive away or harm them or pick the berries. And then as far as treasure, the monsters have hidden some ex voto stolen from the sanctuary in a nearby bush. Trinkets worth 12 silver pieces. If the characters return them to the obelisk, they receive 100 experience points each. All right. So I guess so we have some trinkets. I don't know what an ex voto is, but I'm guessing they call it a trinket, so I'm guessing it's something kind of small. Probably make a note that there's maybe some discolored stone, or maybe those trinkets once sat on the base of the obelisk, something, or maybe even something on the obelisk where they fit, just to kind of give the clue that they belong to the obelisk. Otherwise, it would be kind of hard, almost a guess, or I suppose you're just role playing if the party's examining them. Say, they seem to have the same, motif. I do like the what is this? A trident motif here. Dealing with the monsters, the people of Greyven are grateful. Carl applies a 10% discount on all his wares. Excellent. Carl being the store, I think the guy managing the store. Berries, the fruit are sweet, but only have healing properties, only a folk superstition. Aw, too bad. And then on the obelisk itself, on the face, the obelisk portrays a fiendish god now lost to time, riding a monstrous, lanky horse. Time has worn out their features, yet they emanate a sense of power. Surrounding the god are symbols of chains and bindings indicating imprisonment. This face also shows a chaotic scene of chains shattering and the Forlorn God rising in a storm of dark energy. Figures around the god are terrified. Opposite face shows an asymmetrical trident. The dots on the trident's depiction hint at how to place the leaves in Area 16. What are the dots? I don't see dots. I'm not sure. So it is asymmetrical because it's 3, but the one side, was it the tine? I think for a fork, is it a tine of a fork? I don't know, maybe it's the same for a trident. Is higher than the other one. And maybe those dots are those dark parts in there, but I don't see dots particularly. But anyway, if you figure that out, and maybe you want to give this to the party, or just, I'm not sure what the best way to communicate that is. Maybe just give them a picture of it. Print this out, cut it out, give it to them as a picture. Though I think what I'd want is all 3 faces. So you don't know. As the GM, the guide is the book is telling us that this face with the trident is the important piece. For the party, they don't know. If I just gave them a picture of the trident side, then that's kind of a giveaway, a tell that that's the important thing. Whereas if I had a picture or a page that I could print that had a handout, I suppose, that had all 3 on there, then it would be a little bit more up to them to figure out which part of this is important and for when. Now we get to the hills, which we've been promised a random encounter. The journey through the hills to reach the Cenotaph of the Forlorn God takes about 3 hours on horseback or 6 hours on foot. Azarhorn knows the way because he found a forgotten map in a library. During the first trek to the Cenotaph, the characters must face a random encounter determined by the roll of a d6. If a ranger or the stray dog is with the party... Ooh, I missed the stray dog. Where is there a stray dog? I missed it, but there's a stray dog. Cool. And I like that if you take the stray dog with you, it has an effect. All right, so let's see. If the ranger or the stray dog is with the party, roll 1d6 plus 1. The bonus doesn't stack for both. On subsequent trips to and from the Cenotaph, roll a d8 on the random encounter table. If the character slew the hill whore, treat a result of 1 as a 2. So the reason why you need to treat it 1 as a 2 is because encounter number 1 on the d6 is the hill whore. If you roll 6 or more, which means that when you're doing subsequent visits, you're more likely to get 6 or more because you're rolling a d8 instead of a d6. You encounter a bench, or the party encounters a bench carved into a rocky hillside looking very old. On its back is written, "Rest here, ye weary traveler." Characters who decide to eat a meal on the bench recover 1d4 hit points. The bench's magical power only works once per character. So a little healing, and you're more likely to get it as you're making trips back and forth, which means you're more likely to get that encounter when you might actually need the healing. If the party encounters the hill horror, and this is some I put it in a little chaotically colored cup today, but I'm a little polar orange vanilla seltzer for the working man. If the party encounters the hill hard, dark clouds suddenly gather above the characters' heads. With a neigh that seems to come from beyond the grave, the monstrous creature appears and charges the party. The monster chases the characters until they leave the hills to return to the village or enter the dungeon of the Forlorn God. But in the latter case, it awaits them at the exit. Nice. The thing is here with this, right? Okay, so it comes over their heads. We don't know the stats. I feel like some kind of capsule of the stats you could fit here and then give me the rest on page 27. Just seems like you got the space. Just be nice to know so I don't have to flip over to page 27. I might not need it. And then the one funny thing with this is, what does that chase look like? Because we're not using hexes, we're using kind of a point crawl. So if they run towards the Cenotaph, do they just get there? Is there some kind of, we're doing some kind of skill challengey, roll this against that? We don't have, are we going to go, I think OSE has, like BX does, has some pursuit rules for the wilderness, but that kind of assumes you're using distances that you're measuring. So an interesting option, but it could, depending on what rule set you're using and everything, I don't know if I would not have minded a little bit of a, hey, here's how to run this, because we're not really concerned with distances. We're just doing hours on horseback or foot. But it's a small matter. Presumably this hill horror is pretty powerful, so you're going to want to run. But maybe not. Now we're at the prison. When the characters reach their destination, read the following aloud or paraphrase. All right, we'll read this. Azarhorn finally stops his pace, and you find yourself in front of what, at first, seems just a crack in the hillside, infested with brambles and vines. Here we are, says the wizard dryly. Help me clean up the entrance. You remove the weeds, revealing that carved stone frames the crevice. You behold strange symbols never seen before etched on the gray rock. A heavy stone slab closes the entrance. Judging by the fine stonemasonry, there may also be traps or protection spells. Azarhorn knows what to do, though. He stands in front of the entrance and utters a dark incantation. Grating, the stone slab disappears downwards. Narrow and uneven steps descend into the dark belly of the hill, from which a fetid and stale air exudes. So it's a nice, you're right, you get a little flavor, you get a little thing going on. I don't know. I mean, it's a hint. Maybe it's too much of a hint. It's probably going to depend on, but it's clear from this. Azarhorn, what does he say? He utters a dark incantation, which is a clear giveaway. If you didn't know he was a dark wizard, well, you're going to get it now. And of course, maybe if your party is full of dark wizards, that means nothing to them. But if your party is a bunch of goody-goodies, and the person who's supposed to be guiding you through here is you notice them uttering dark incantations, that might give you pause. But that might be the point, right? A little foreshadowing here of Azarhorn's turn. Okay, so we got just some notes. It's pitch black. Dungeon has no lights. The dungeon relies heavily on keys. I do like this, some notes. We know to kind of pay attention to these. The dungeon relies heavily on keys the characters must use wisely. Remember, the hanged thief's finger used as a key opens any door, then is consumed. So they say finger. Does that mean if you cut off all the fingers, you would have 10 magic, basically 10 knock uses, essentially? There is a secondary entrance about 20 feet above the entrance to the Cenotaph. The den of a purple badger opens. The beast, digging its home, has opened a 50-yard tunnel leading to Area 15. The den hosts 6 harmless puppies waiting for their mother. Examining the den, the badger mom used a piece of cloth stolen from the red banner in Area 11. The puppies start to cry. The badger mother returns to the den after 30 minutes. If her puppies cry, she arrives in 6 minutes. She ferociously defends her babies. Any character can crawl into the tunnel except for the ones wearing plate. Turning inside the tunnel is impossible. A character bitten from behind by the purple badger automatically suffers damage. I like that note. I like having a secondary thing. I like there's a little bit of a risk-reward with it. We get this little piece of cloth that's nicely illustrated. I can't tell yet if there's some clue in there. that would help them with the area, with that, whatever's in area 11. Oh, which is also bookmarked, which is nice. Or internally linked, I should say. So not sure about. I mean, I like it. We'll have to see if there's an actual clue there. Because part of me thinks like, man, it would be really nice if there's something in this piece of ripped fabric that helps give extra context to the rest of it. I guess we'll have to see. I can't. Nothing stands out to me there, but then again, I can't see the whole. So maybe it would be obvious once we see it. Oh yeah, so we haven't gotten any maps yet. So now we're getting maps as we go. First off, the stairs, slippery steps. 18 steps of damp mossy stone descend into the tomb. All right. And then we get the warning. A square room with one door per wall and luminous writing floating in the air. It's not really a square room. So one thing I'm confused. I wish that so here's on the layout. This is a cool layout. All right, first of all, I just want to say I think this is really kind of nice, very visual. But I need some help with the visuals, right? Because here you get the stairs, and it's fairly obvious where I believe that we're looking at just this area here, which I'd love is just add a little highlighting. We're already kind of color. I imagine, well, digitally, obviously, you've got all the colors you want. I don't know if this is, I didn't check to see if you can get this printed, but I presume it's being printed in color. Give me something, circle, highlight, or grade the rest of this out somehow so we know that this whole area in the picture is not the stairs. We're talking about just the actual staircase. And I know it seems obvious, but oftentimes we'll name a room after the biggest feature. The stairs going down. And what we're talking about is, the downward staircase, and then we're also talking about the room that the downward staircase is in or enters. So I think we're talking just about the stairs. So let's tell the stairs, which leads me to this second one. I think I understand what they're trying to do by giving us a greater area so that we have context from the stairs of what is up ahead. Nothing's numbered though, too. So if this said 1 over the stairs and 2, that might be another way to do it. But 1 over the stairs, so we know that's the stairs, and then 2 down here, so we know that 2 is this room. And the thing is, that's a little bit confusing with this room, is it says it's a square room, but the room in the picture is not square; it's rectangular. And you might think, okay, am I just quibbling? Well, yes, I am quibbling a bit, but the picture is square, which means that. For me, anyway, it's a little bit of, okay, well, did they mean the entire thing? Because, again, we're seeing multiple rooms. We're seeing the stairs. We're seeing the room, which I think is the room that we're supposed to be in with a door in each wall. Though it's not one door in each wall because the wall with the stairs doesn't have a door. So another bit of, okay, it's a door per wall, but it's not. Because there's no doors at the stairs, and that is one of the walls. And then it also has this rounded, where one of the rooms is, I guess the next one's rounded. Until we get to the next page, I'm looking in book views. This is all I'm seeing at the moment. Do I assume, what do I assume? So on the one hand, I really like it. I feel like, man, it's really cool. I would just like to do this in a way to highlight just a bit more that, hey, we're talking about this area here, which again, it's not square. It's a rectangle, and it kind of is more meaningful because the actual picture with all the rooms is square, that it's easy to get confused about what's the square room. But quibbles and bits aside, it's not efficient in page count, but I could care less about that. But I really like this layout. And so we've got there's luminous writing floating in the air, and we got a nice pictorial of that. I might say, especially with the digital materials, make some handouts. You've got these beautiful graphics of different things. We had the torn corner here, the torn bottom of the banner. We had the obelisk, which I said if we could put all 3 or 4, 3 faces, right? Put those in some kind of handouts so we can hand those out. Because I think having those kind of visuals is amazing. I don't want to have to I suppose I could do the work myself and say, okay, print screen, crop, do that. But since you got everything here, just put it, and you already got a bunch of files in a zip file. If you had a handouts thing with 1 thing per page, or maybe on half pages, that would be awesome. So a note on the luminous writing. Thieves with their class skill or spellcasters using read languages can translate the magic script. Death awaits the wicked and the madmen who will try to free the nameless. Okay. Touching or casting dispel magic on the writing, it disappears, and the dungeon's magic wards weaken. All lights radius, both magic and mundane, decreases by 20%. There's a 1 in 6 chance the magic event attracts the jailer. All right, so a couple of things to note here. So I like that there's an effect by touching it. I'm not sure, I don't know why that would make the wards weaken, but it does. I don't know why. It does. Obviously, it's like, hey, if you can't read this warning and accept it and leave, then we're just going to weaken the wards. I don't know if I get that part, but it's a quirk. Whatever. It's a quirk of the place. Fine. The decreasing light, both magic and mundane, by 20% is awesome. Except now I got to deal with 20%, and I got to figure out what that means. I think I would just rather, I think we do, torchlight is normally, 30 feet? So maybe we just say by half, or just say 15 feet, or if you want to say, just subtract 10 feet, or let's see, if something like that, if 10% of 30, because 10% of 30 is 3%, so then double that, so 10% of 30 feet is 3 feet, so you double that, 6 feet, so now you're at 20. It's just a little bit, and using 5-foot squares, I presume, so I don't need the percentages. Just give me hey, now torches, subtract 10 feet. They shine 10 less feet. Something like that would be kind of just easier. Just make a note going forward. But it's a cool effect. And then I'm interested to see who the jailer is. On to the librarium here. Can I zoom out a bit? Oh, wait a minute. So we were here. Now we jumped. Okay. Yeah. I think numbers would be good. See, like I said again, we've got this view of this room. It doesn't show what's on the sides. Let me just check to see if there's a map that's separate that is numbered. That might make this a lot more sensible. Okay, we do have a numbered one. Yay! Oh, wait, where am I going? Wait a minute. Hold on. Prison. Okay, so we start here. Level 1. Okay. Yeah, see, I understand. I think what the idea here is, the concept is, hey, you have this map here, and now when we're referencing the mini bits of the map, you're kind of supposed to know you're in here. But put the number. I just think put the numbers in there, and then when we're in the rooms, put the arrows or numbers or something saying, hey, 3's in here. Hey, whatever's in here. Because I think that these are nice enough and usable enough that I don't think I would feel necessarily the need to reference the overall map of the place. But I'm going to get confused when I go from the image that's here for 2 and then 3. I figured it out. It just takes a minute, but sometimes you don't have that minute. So it's another, I have to flip now to another page. Or alternatively, just print the map out and have them side by side so you don't have to kind of flip back and forth to reference. So we get the library here. It's got some random contents of books. The north, east, and south halls have shelves carved into the stone, all cluttered with tomes and wooden tubes to store scrolls. All the shelves and tubes are dirty with the dust of centuries. And then there's a note on the dust. If a character takes one of the tubes carelessly, a cloud of dust arises, forcing everyone within 10 feet to save versus breath or cough violently for a few minutes and lose 1d4 hit points. There's a 1 in 6 chance the noise attracts the jailer. I think, you know what? Not that it's bad to have this, because it seems like the idea here is that any kind of noise you're making is going to have a 1 in 6 chance of attracting the jailer. I probably would put just a general note at the start of the dungeon. Noise is going to attract the jailer with roll 1 in 6 every time there's loud noise is made. Because that's what I'd want to do. And I'd want to do it not just for the dust, but just anything the party does that might be noisy. Roll for the jailer. Tomes and tubes, refer to the table below to determine their contents. Okay, so we got some stuff. Some clerical scrolls, a violent scream, a candle made of blue wax, an empty tube, an illegible tome. The candles made of blue wax are important, or at least might be useful in another part of the dungeon. A scroll revealing the position of a hidden door. A nasty insect comes out. One thing I have to say is, if we're going into a prison, and it's not a prison that's occupied, right? This is a prison of traps to hold an imprisoned god. Well, of course, the god's in prison, otherwise you wouldn't need the prison. So who's the library for? Right. And then who's because no one's supposed to live here. This isn't a, we just looked at the aisle, and the aisle has these different levels of things, and it has a prison element too, but it has factions, and you could see how on some level somebody has taken something and made, because it's also this kind of almost has this hellish sort of thing. So you could see a library being there, or some kind of mutated version, twisted version of a library. But for here, where it's like, no, this is a straight up prison that's, they don't want you to come in. Then, why would you put in a library with clues to secrets that you probably don't want people to find because it's a prison? So I don't know if it's worth injecting a little bit of backstory into what this thing was before it became the prison, or are we like working too far in the past? But it might strike me as odd as to, okay, there's a library, unless we're saying that this is the jailer's part of the jailer's. We don't know what the jailer is. I don't know if it's a construct, an undead, or whatever. But if you're saying, hey, somebody's been basically, maybe they decided, or they swore an oath to stay here and be a physical obstacle and guardian of this prison, and it makes sense that in their quarters maybe they have all this stuff, but it's too close to the entrance for that. If I'm the jailer, I'm not going to have my library and my bedroom and stuff be right off the first place you can come in. So no. But it does, it does lead to some cool stuff. But it's an interesting choice for this kind of location. Keeper of the Keys. This cold room is bare except for the realistic statues of 6 war mastiffs. An unknown hand portrayed the beasts in various positions. Each mastiff has a chain collar with a hanging key. All right, so we got keys, and they've been put in sort of a different font, or maybe they're in lowercase. Everything else is all caps, indicating that they're kind of important. So I'm assuming the keys are important. After some minutes, if the party tarries along in the room, like searching for secret doors, all the stone mastiffs animate and attack with surprise. Touching the statues or the keys, all the stone dogs animate and attack with surprise. Hitting the statues, the monsters automatically suffer damage, and then they all attack. And then we got the keys. 2 are copper, 2 are silver, and 1 is iron, 1 is gold. And then anytime you use one of the keys, it dissolves. And we have another call-out box with some lore. The constructs keep the keys that open several rooms of the complex. They only recognize the authority of the clerics of yore, which no longer exist. A cleric or paladin may try to exert control on the stone mastiffs. If that's the case, make a reaction roll on the monster's behalf. A result of 11 or more, the constructs recognize the character as a descendant of the clerics of yore. See, I thought yore was just like of old, but maybe there's an actual... Maybe there's an actual line of clerics, the clerics of capital Y, yore. This would be something I'd want to seed somewhere. Maybe this is, I didn't see if this is one of the rumors, but I'd probably want, because otherwise I'm not sure how a cleric or paladin would know to exert control over the stone mastiffs. That's not something that's part of their normal routine. Oh, look, a statue's come to life. I'm the paladin. Let me try to control it. So I'd like to give them a chance to do something with them. So that'd be something I'd like to play up. So I'd want to seed that. Also, I think it's a missed opportunity since there's a stray dog around there. If the stray dog is still with them, maybe the dog calms the mastiffs or does something. That might be a fun thing to do. Or if you happen to have the stray dog with you, you have these dogs, maybe there's something happens. And basically it's funny that the bullets on everything you do, but essentially everything's gonna, I don't know if you just say, hey, look, after 10 minutes or so, or until either it's kind of like after 10 minutes or as soon as the party tries to interact with the statues or the keys on their collars, they animate. Because there's no real difference between any of these bullet points. All the mastiffs animate and attack. All the mastiffs animate and attack. Like, yeah, we got it. We could probably just put a note in there. And I would probably be a little bit lenient. Well, I would definitely want to play situationally on the surprise, because look, when a party of adventurers, mid-level adventurers, enter a room with a bunch of statues of stuff, no doubt in my mind that they're going to have, okay, we're watching the heck out of those statues while we do something. So at that point, I probably would say, nah, you're not, I could not in good conscience have them be surprised because the text told me so. Given that, I feel like more likely than not, they're guarding against surprise. They literally would be guarding against surprise attacks from the statues. All right, double trouble. This curved corridor is cold and damp. You can't understand where it could lead. So there's a trap here. Two concealed adjacent trapdoors, 6.6.5 feet long each. A character who spots one of the trapdoors does not automatically spot the other one. The trapdoors open to Trap A is a bladed pit trap 16 feet below. The crescent-shaped blade at the bottom is still sharp. The character must save versus death or suffer 2d8 HP, half as much on a success. And then B is a pit trap 20 feet deep, full of bones and webs. The fall causes 1d6 hit points, and the rotting bones are infected. The character must save versus poison or contract an unnamed disease. At the bottom of the pit, an unknown hand frantically scribbled on a few words on the wall, "Play first." This is a hint referring to the Skullmaster's game in Area 9. All right. But it's, I guess you just have to assume that maybe those guys hit it on the way out. Because we haven't seen the Playmaster, and this part of the dungeon, to go back to the map, let's see, how do we get to 9? Can we get to 9 before we've, like, what's the order? I'm just going to scroll down. What's the order of operations here? So we come through 1, 2, 3. All right, we got A and B. 4. So it seems to me, I can't imagine. So the Area 9 is not even on the first floor. So the only thing I would say is it's a nice clue, but it's a little bit of that thing. And again, I'm reading it, right? Okay. Where it's a little bit gamey because play first. It's a clue for further dungeon. But how did the guy at the bottom of this pit on the first floor going to know about some game that's on the second floor? Because presumably they didn't get that far. They got nailed. Unless we're going to say that guy went down, got to the Skullmaster, played part of the game, and then came back up, and then fell into the pit. I don't know. But I like me some traps. All right, so we got that part. Let's see. Oh, so we have some symptoms of... What symptoms of what? Oh, so the unnamed disease. Disease causes various symptoms randomly determined each hour with 1d6. The symptoms don't stack. So each hour something else happens, but they don't stack. So you're going to be bouncing around between being weak, feverish, nauseous, have kind of sea legs. Oh, that's an improvement. So you might get sea legs. You might take 1d4 hit points damage or have amnesia, which is just for spellcasters. It basically means you lose a spell. Lose a random spell from your prepared ones, which, oof, could be rough. So don't fall down that pit, spellcasters. 6, so that was 5. I think 6 were coming around again. That's the center room. Did we hit both side rooms? Oh, we did. Okay, so the library was one side, Keeper of the Keys was the other side. Round hallway now in the middle, the fountain. A fountain of scented water dominates the center of this fountain of scented water dominates the center of this semicircular room, while frescoes still in good condition decorate the curved wall. I think you have enough. I really like the simple dungeon layout, but I think you could probably mark the fountain in there. I don't think it would be. You could even use just very simple lines. You know, a filled white circle surrounded by really just a circle with a thick border just to indicate the fountain. The frescoes tell a watered-down version of the clash between the clerics of yore and the Forlorn God. The representations are heroic and hieratic. It seems like a mythological tale. The only clear things are that the clerics imprisoned the Forlorn God, and some angelic creatures brought a crystal key to the clerics. Any spellcaster also recognizes the alchemical symbol of silver hidden in the frescoes. I really like these call-outs to, hey, what spellcasters know. That's very cool. And I would encourage folks to use that in other places, because it makes your... It just makes them feel better. Because remember, now you're mid-levels, it's not like they won't have some spells. But I think people are always saying, well, what do we do with spellcasters at low levels? They've only got one spell, and then I feel blah, blah, blah. Now, I think that often I don't really think that's I think they have very much the same opportunity to do just about everything as everyone else has. So I don't really look at that and say, oh, no, they lost their one thing. They're useless. And at the same time, I like the idea of like, no, well, if you're a spellcaster, you are by nature learned in all kinds of weird stuff. So play up that learning. Inspecting, the water's scent is violet. The water's scent is violet. I guess like the plant, like the flower, the violet. The drain hole seems like a keyhole. A detect magic spell reveals the water to be magic. With a silver key, the water washes away and the bottom sinks to form a spiral staircase descending to, down to Area 7. Next level, with an iron key, the water washes away and the fountain's bottom sinks to create a slippery descending spiral slide leading to there. Oh, interesting. Characters descending the slide must save versus death or tumble down to the bottom for 1d4 hit points, and there's a 2 in 6 chance the noise attracts the jailer. Any other key does not work. So if you use remember each key disintegrates or vanishes whenever you use it, so presumably, since they're letting you use the iron key instead of the silver key, it means that you could probably use the silver key later instead of the iron key. I don't know, but we do get the alchemical symbol for silver. I'd probably want to reveal that information also to somebody else, because it seems like at the moment only spellcasters would recognize that. So make sure to, especially because you might maybe you don't even have a spellcaster in the party or whatever. So you just I'd want to give some other route. Otherwise, I suppose if worst comes to worst, I mean, you have keys, you just start testing keys, or you use the finger, I guess. Because you always have the fingers instead. But they don't say which one. I would say the finger probably works like the iron key. It'll work, but it's not the clean fit, so I would give it the iron key treatment. We do have some water effect. If you drink the water, you might get courage, a panacea, some healing, a dark surge. Have a heart attack, get righteously angry, suffer a death coil, or be steady. Steady. And these all lead down to the next area, which is the fresco fright. Many unsettling frescoes decorate this circular hallway. The frescoes tell a brutal version of the clash between the clerics of yore and the Forlorn God. That's cool. Characters who stare at the fresco must save versus spells or weird magic transports their minds to the times of the battle for some minutes. The bewildering experience makes the characters lose 1 wisdom for a day, yet the visions they receive prove helpful in Area 17. Okay. But they don't tell us what those visions are. Just that your mind gets transported, you lose a wisdom, but it is going to give you some insight later on. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair thing. I mean, losing a point of wisdom like that for a shortish period of time isn't really going to hurt much. There's nothing horrible is going to happen to you with that lost point of wisdom. I mean, unless you're at 1 wisdom, in which case, yeah, that would be bad. The trident. At the center of this oddly shaped room lies a steel trident vertically planted on a low circular dais. So this is the place which, let's see, it connects back to the obelisk that has the trident on it. So the trick for this one is it looks like the one depicted on the sanctuary's obelisk. If a character takes the trident, a loud clunk fills the air as a volley of iron bolts shoot from the holes in the walls towards the center of the room. All characters within 10 feet must save versus death or suffer 2d4 damage. The mechanism to disarm the trap lies on the dais surface in the form of a barely detectable keyhole. Again, keyholes. Keyhole accepts a bronze key or iron key only. So interesting. The iron key seems like can work for a few different things. Let's see. As a weapon, it's 1d8. This is the trident. It's slow, two-handed, and against the hill horror, the jailer, and the Forlorn God, its damage is 1d12. It can also be used as a key to reveal a secret panel in Area 16. So we don't know yet about the holes thing, what the significance of the holes is. So basically, you just pick up the trident, you're going to have to deal with the trap. But you could possibly disarm the trap using a key. Or I guess you can... it's not even really disarm, right? It's really just you turn off the trap by sacrificing a key. It doesn't seem like you can actually disarm the traps using a thief's disarm. I probably would give them something to do with that. Though maybe, and this is maybe where some guidance might be helpful. you probably mean to have a limited number of things you can do with the keys to make you think about when to spend them or not. And if you can kind of hoard keys by using thief, disarm, trap abilities, then that lessens their impact. Right? Or if they can unlock a lot of the doors. But at the same time, it's like it's either attacks on your hit points, because you have to, I'm assuming you have to take the trident, or it's attacks on your keys. And I'd kind of like to leave room. I mean, there's probably something clever you can do. Maybe you attach, you put some kind of pulley up, and you winch it up, and then you yoink it up from a distance so that the bolts fly by you like that. But I might want to think about, well, how does a thief, since we're probably gonna have thieves in this party, how does their abilities interact with these keys? Or is it just because they're all magical, so the thief is out of luck? I forget what level, if any, thieves can do unlock magical things. I think they do get it at some point, right? I don't recall. But, I'd maybe want a note on that. Of course, otherwise I just got to figure it out myself. All right, now we're at the Skullmaster. Here we go. Ghostly figure covered in a ragged black robe, sits in front of a table with 11 mouse skulls. With a booming, eerie voice, the figure introduces itself as the Skull Master, and invites the characters to challenge it to a game of intelligence and strategy. So the Skull Master's game. In turn, the players can draw 1, 2, or 3 skulls from the table, as they prefer, and then pass the hand. The player left with only 1 skull on the table on their turn loses the game. The Skullmaster lets its challenger decide whether to start the game or let the entity go first. A sure way to win is to draw first, take 2 skulls, and leave the opponent with 5 skulls on the table with your next move. The chart below shows the suggested number of skulls to draw based on how many are at the table. The referee can use it to play at the Skullmaster's behalf. So hence the guy saying, play first. All right, now what happens if you lose? So winning, the Skullmaster, you get a level and will not accept any more challengers. If you lose a level and they'll take more challenges. If you attack, he's got AC 9, does not respond to the attacks, but redirects the damage it takes to the attacker. If the characters attack the entity during a match, it redirects the damage to the character playing against it. No blow or shove can move it from its chair, which is indestructible. All right. So, you don't want to attack it. That would be bad. And you could play the game, and someone with a little bit of thought will figure out how to kind of rig the game. Or not rig it, but sort of, going first and doing that move will be the most. And there's some nice rewards if you do it. I like the risk-reward aspect. First player goes in and decides to take up the challenge. And if they succeed, they get a level. But then it's done. So you can't do a little ring around. No, I'm going to play. No, I'm going to play. No, I'm going to play. It's like, no, you have to be the daring one to actually take up the challenge and suss it out and then do it. And you get rewarded. Everyone else, sorry, pal. But of course, there's a cost if you lose too. If you're foolhardy, you just jump in front and you don't think it through, then you're going to lose a level. The treasury. Against the east wall are piled up the offerings accumulated by the clergy of the Forlorn God. There are 2 clay jars filled with gold coins, plus many more silver and bronze scattered on the floor, along with jewels, gold cups, and plates. I really like these rooms, just the way they're laid out. I have to ponder that for my own stuff, because I've been working on this thing where everything's really squeezed together, but I kind of really like this idea of just letting it all flow out. Let it all flow. Let your soul flow. 3 banners. This perfectly square room is cold and bare except for 3 banners on the west wall. Despite the dust and dirt, they are in excellent condition, easily readable. So we have the Ice Realm, the Fire Realm, and the Black Sun Realm. The banners. Each one shows a prevalent color and tells a different scene. The blue banner on the west wall depicts a frozen and barren plain facing an iceberg. The red banner on the east wall represents a scabbard above an anvil-shaped altar in the center of a flaming hell. The black banner on the north wall depicts a rapier blazing with blue flames. Missing piece. The red banner misses a piece of cloth. Until the characters reattach the missing piece, it's impossible to enter the fire realm. Aha, so there it is. So it's not a clue, but it's a necessity. Now, one thing I want to know is, Area 7 had the badgers. Where does that? The tunnel leads to area 15. So you end up in the labyrinth. Okay. Which is, I think I need to go. I just want to kind of see. So we're down here now. There's, okay, I like the note for the badger hole. So we're here. And then that's the badger hole. And then where are we? Where are these? 11 is the 3 banners. Where is 11? Let's see. 13, 11. See, this is the thing about it here. So the badger hole is here, and we're supposed to believe the badger went over, down into here where there's a doors blocking. Or you can go through a secret door. That still goes to a door. Then there's another door. Then there's another door into here, clawed off the bottom of that banner for reasons I don't know why, and then brought it all the way back. I think maybe from a layout perspective, you say, like, I don't want to have the badger, but I just had the badger hole just go right to 11. That to me makes some more sense. And maybe I'd even have a spot on the wall where that banner is supposed to be, and then have it lying on the floor. I don't know why the badger would go after it. It doesn't seem like, oh my gosh, it thought it was food and just started eating it. It seemed just like it's like a puzzle. So I'm nitpicking first of all, because I think a lot of parties just roll with it and not think too hard about it, and like, okay, something's wrong with this. Where's the piece? And then hopefully they find the badger thing and do it. We don't know yet if this is necessary, right? If they went and found the badger hole, then that's another thing. But it's kind of hard to. How do you give them a clue that it's not just missing? Like, it's just not old. Okay, the other ones are not torn, and this one's torn. So that might think, like, okay, well, these seem to be really well preserved and seem maybe that they're magic. And then this one's torn. That must be meaningful. But you might not be thinking, like, aha, like an animal took it, right? It's just one of those things where it's just, as a puzzle piece, it's like, okay, we get it. Now you're going to have to go and find another piece to put this together, and it sort of gives you a little mini goal that you can understand once you kind of figure out what these banners do that you need to do. On the other hand, it's a little bit like, it doesn't necessarily follow. And so I guess by having that, if I had the badger hole close by, then I could have some clues that might lead to the badger hole. Maybe put a body in here and have them have a crude knife, and then there's some stuff, but then there's also the badger marks. Something like that might indicate, like, okay, and then maybe there's whatever going away, or have one of these doors, some things be open and something, right? Put it nearby so that we can kind of maybe put it together a little better. But the badger's hole is so far away, and it's down a corridor that you don't really need to go down other than just to look and see. And if it's not obvious, you might even see, oh, it doesn't seem to be anything down there. Okay, we'll turn around and go, or we found other things. It's maybe it's a little bit the thing's a little bit too far removed. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. So what do these banners do again? So the missing piece, we need the missing piece of the red one. If you touch them, the banner sucks the character into a pocket realm, and no one else can enter it to help. The character can try and resist the teleporting magic with a save versus spells, but they can also willingly enter the banner with no saving throw. Exiting the pocket realm is effortless, but the character must not be engaged in combat. The corpse of a character who dies inside a banner reappears in the room. And this is where you could have a body inside who got teleported out, whatever, something like that. You could have a body, maybe they tried to do something. Heck, maybe that banner was pulled off the wall to try to staunch a wound, and then there's bite marks and things, and the banner got ripped. And then you could have fun with, I don't know, I mean, who knows? seems like nobody's been here in a long, long time, so maybe it'd be dried up. But then at the same time, the badgers, I don't know how long a purple badger lives, but it can't be too old. So let's see. So for the different realms, the unrelenting icy winds blowing here can freeze the character to death. This is in the ice realm. Only a resist cold spell or heavy clothes can help. For each turn spent in the pocket realm, the character loses 1d3 hit points. Only one if he wears heavy clothes, and none if he casts a resist cold spell. The ice of the iceberg exudes a terrifying chill, but it is possible to break it to get a piece. A strength of 17 is needed, but for each point missing, the character performs a strength check with an equivalent malice. Each attempt lasts 1 round. So I guess you need to break the a piece of the iceberg. In the fire realm, you need to throw a piece of the iceberg's ice onto the anvil to snuff out the fire, allowing the characters to retrieve the scabbard. And then in the black sun realm, it's a living rapier. All right, so you have to fight against the living rapier, and if you can basically kill it, it will surrender to you. But you have to have the scabbard, otherwise you can't put out the flames that it's wreathed in. The blue flames make the character easily noticeable. The rapier's name is Shooting Star. It's a rapier +1, +2 versus spellcasters, permanent light 10-foot radius, extra damage 1d3. Creatures immune to fire or magic are unaffected. So that's cool. I'm guessing you don't need this. It's not required, but it's an extra. So that's nice. So it has to have gated progress. And I think it's cool. I like the idea of this, that you have to put these things together. I think it's kind of hard to figure out how to do it. I guess you have to go in. You're going to have to just spend some time touching these, coming back out. It says that you can come out whenever you want. I don't know how you communicate that. Maybe as soon as a player says, like, man, I want to go back. Geez, I got to get out of here. They just come back. Something like that. So it's just, it's like at your whim, you can come back. Because otherwise, these places will hurt you. The only one where it's trouble is if you go to the Black Sun Realm. You want to go to that one last. But someone will probably go there first, and then I suppose you can get the sword. You just can't put out the flames. It doesn't say it hurts, all right? It's just that the blue flames will make them easily noticeable. But there's not really anything wandering down here. So noticeable from whom? The jailer? I don't know. But it's cool. It's cool. I kind of think it's, I'm trying to think. I think it might be puzzle enough if you just left all the banners alone. I don't know this added wrinkle of the torn banner. It just makes it, because you just got to go. It feels like you got to go kind of far out of your way to get it. But the ultimately, I do like the idea, the concept, where you have 3 things that kind of inform each other, and figuring out how those 3 things go together nets you what you need, right? But you can kind of do it partially. You can just go get the sword and leave, but then it's just going to be flaming at all times. And since they've said here it literally burns things, well, how do you put it? You got to put it out on stone or something. You can't put it in a house. You can't put it on wood. It's going to eventually burn it down. So a neat puzzle there. I would probably, if somebody went through and got it and never got the scabbard, I would probably allow somewhere to get some kind of magical replacement scabbard. Otherwise, that's kind of it makes it hard for them. I mean, I don't mind making it hard for them. I'm not saying like gift them with one, but I might give them some method of getting a replacement scabbard. All right, so we have a room of black ink. This room's walls are decorated with a disturbing pattern of hands. Its doors are of sturdy iron-banded wood, and both are open. All right, so maybe so both are open here. So this, I guess the badger could, right? Because I think this room here is the banner room. These doors are open, so I guess the badger could get down here. But I think it's a secret door that way, right? Did I read that correctly? Yeah, so even going that way, it's still a secret door, which means the badger's still That's a hard road. Hard road, Mr. Badger. Shortly after the characters have entered the room, the doors magically close and all the lights, including the magical ones, snuff out. At the same time, a sinister ink demon materializes and attacks the party. Okay, well then, I mean, that's cool, but at the same time, that means the Badger couldn't go that way, unless it ignores animals, which I suppose you might. One could argue maybe it wouldn't attack rats and things like that. It would only want to attack people. Yeah, maybe. Crystal Key, a chipstone basin filled with a liquid appearing to be water, occupies the center of the room. It's probably not water. At the bottom center of the basin lies a crystal key. Liquid is a powerful magic acid. It quickly corrodes metal, flesh, and bones, but not wood. A character who puts an arm in the liquid must save versus death. A failure without wearing armor causes 2d6 hit points, or 1d6 on a success. A failed wearing armor causes 2d4 hit points, 1d4 on a success. And the armor loses 1 point of AC. For example, chainmail becomes, from AC 5 goes to AC 6. Magic armors lose 1 bonus point. There's no way to repair non-magical armor. Repairing magical armor costs 1,000 gold piece for each bonus point to restore. I like that. Give me a little, if I needed it, give me a little something on how we can deal with that. So the crystal key, an ingenious reflection makes it appear that the key is at the bottom of the basin, when in truth it dangles from the ceiling 9 feet above the ground, tied to a thin silver thread. Only the characters who look up notice it. The key opens the door to Area 17, or the god chains is locked, but only one of the two because it shatters after 1 use. So I do like that. So that's a cool kind of puzzle, right? You got to look up. Otherwise, it looks like it's in the bottom of the pool, but actually it's not. The cells mechanism, you arrive at a circular bare room except for a strange mechanism at its center. Cool. So we got this mechanism, and then we've got some red lever, blue lever, and black lever, and you got to put them in their correct spots. And then into the labyrinth. Winding corridors, all the same, intersections, turns that lead nowhere. Under your souls creaks the dust of centuries, the centuries that has accumulated here. And there's the jailer. While the characters are in the dungeon area outlined in red, the chances of the jailer's arrival rise to 4 in 6. A mark on the map indicates the jailer's respawn point. I wouldn't use respawn point, just because it makes it sound like a video game. Badger's Den. Yep, we got that. There's a slime. A mark on the labyrinth's map indicates where a black pudding lurks for prey. A, B, or C cell. If it's closed, there's a ghost inside. Otherwise, the ghost mindlessly roams through the labyrinth. These ghosts are, unresting but innocuous spirits. If the characters free them all simultaneously, they keep the jailer busy, who will not manifest in the labyrinth anymore. That's a cool little thing. Itch here. That's kind of cool. How do you unlock? How do you open them simultaneously? I'm not sure. The 3 ghosts, each ghost annoys the jailer differently, if free, or has something to tell if imprisoned. If the characters free them all simultaneously, the jailer gets too busy. Stop checking for its apparition. So any 1 or 2, I guess the jailer gets some effects, but then if you get all 3 out. The simultaneously thing, it's another one of those things like, what does it matter simultaneously? It's just, it doesn't make sense from a, if the 3 ghosts occupy the jailer, why would it matter whether you let out 1 at a time, then 2, then 3, or just let them all at once? I'm not sure. It makes it kind of a puzzle, but it also makes it a really random, you have to do things a certain way, and I don't know that there's a tail or something that would indicate, well, why does it have to be at the same time? Maybe you talk to one, you free one, then you're like, oh, and then you free, maybe you don't know, you probably wouldn't even notice what the effect on the jailer is right away, unless you're fighting him a bunch of times, or it, and then you might notice that its armor class has gone down, or it's not quite as good as hitting you, or maybe you could then narrate as a GM that, like, it's being, the ghost is kind of pestering it, and it's throwing the jailer off its game. It just means that you have to do, but the idea of having to do it all at the same time, when I don't know there's anything that indicates why you have to do it at the same time, and it doesn't make sense to me, just in kind of a narrative way, like, oh yeah, of course, open all the cells at the same time. Then it just seems like, who's going to do that? Unless you're just lucky. Someone goes, open them all up. And you go, okay. And everyone, because you have to have 1 character at each door, I guess, and you go, whoop, and you open it. I just can't see who's going to do that without specific guidance saying open the doors at the same time. Antechamber. A large bronze door with 2 curved leaves occupies the west wall, closing in the center like the clutches of a monster. The door is entirely sculpted and seems to tell a story. An oppressive silence reigns in the room as if the noises were muted. The bronze door. The sculptures tell the story of the Forlorn God who tyrannizes his followers and forces them into human sacrifices and fratricide. So there are a couple ways to open the door. When it's, let's see, and when it's open, there's a 1 in 6 chance the jailer arrives. You can do it with the crystal key. You can feed the keyhole a golden key and an iron key. So you got to do them both. If you've got the trident, you can insert the trident in the holes in the door, which opens a secret panel revealing 3 levers. Let's see. And the characters must set in a correct height on a 5-step graduated scale. The solution is to move the left lever at step 3, the center lever at step 4, and the right at step 2. The engravings on the stone obelisk or on the trident offer a hint because that's the heights of the tines of the obelisk match kind of where you need to put them. When the characters do this correctly, the doors of the inner sanctum open. Okay, that's not bad. Again, the feeding it 2 keys, I don't know how you're going to figure that out. Unless I say that this keyhole is particularly big. Why? Because usually a keyhole, it takes a key and it doesn't really give you much wiggle room to put in a whole other key. So how would you know that you need to put or is it, I put in the gold key and then it's like insert another coin, like I put in the iron key? Or could you, so without any kind of setup, I don't know who's going to figure that part out. The crystal key obviously makes sense. And you still have the fingers. I think would the fingers work there? I think I'd like to note if the fingers don't work in certain room, the hangman fingers, because otherwise I probably would let it work. In this hall that exudes evil, the revolting Forlorn God sits on a tall marble throne, its ankles bound by chains of gold encrusted with precious gems and burning runes. There is nothing else, and the lights of the characters dim. Azarhorn urges the party to retrieve the god chains and leave the place. He can also resort to a charm person spell to convince one of the characters to retrieve the artifact. Examining the god, the figure appears to be sleeping while sitting on the throne, yet it is alive. The characters understand this from slight movements of its body. Examine the god chains. They're 25-foot-long gold chains studded with precious gems. It is worth at least 12,000 gold pieces. A detect magic spell reveals waves of protective and inhibiting magic emanating from the artifact. So you have to have the crystal key to unlock the chain. So if you use the crystal key to open up the door here, you don't have it to open the lock. But a thief can lockpick it. This is the first time I've seen reference to a thief doing it. So I don't know if I should infer that the thief could lockpick other things. This one feels like the one where if I was going to say what you could not pick, it would be this one. You have all these doors and things, but all these specialized keys. But this one, which is maybe the most important lock, now the thief can get at it. I don't know. I might let the thief do other ones, and then this one's like, no, it's special. But I understand why, because the game would come to a kind of a screeching halt if you use the crystal key to open the door, and then you get here. But you could have Azarhorn could have like a knock spell or some other kind of spell that they could do, or maybe they could do a dispel. You have an option with this NPC is running with you to do that, which would actually be kind of good for pushing the action. Because right now he's just kind of standing around saying, "When do you guys do it?" But he could actually cast it himself, and then of course if you don't want him to, and then he starts casting, you have an opportunity to go into initiative and do whatever. Which even with a little bit of, you don't even know what his that he wants to kill you yet. It's just that he's doing this thing that maybe at this point you recognize this is bad. So I understand why they did it, but it's to me it strikes me as, well, then why can't thieves unlock all of them? And maybe the answer is they can't. And obviously you can play it however you want. But the specific note here, I think, is because the puzzle itself has created sort of a corner that you get backed into, where it's like, well, we could have had another key, so the crystal key doesn't open that other door. It only opens the chains, which kind of makes sense. I almost feel like just have it be the trident and there's no keyhole on it. It's just got these different things. And then and then you can save the crystal key for this. But like I said, being able to use that key means that you might end up in a spot where you need a key and you don't have a key. Okay. Unlocking the, unlocking the gold chains. A crystal key opens the lock, or a thief can lockpick it. When the gold chains fall to the ground, the character has only 1 minute to take or lock them back before the Forlorn God awakens. In 1 minute, I would definitely go into initiative at this point. And so that way you can really track it. And it also, going to initiative means a couple things. One, you're tracking time specifically, and you have set increments. 6 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever is 3 seconds, whatever you're using, you can increment it. It also makes very clear the limitations of what a character can do before that ticks forward. So you can't do a whole bunch of stuff. It's like, okay, you can do basically what you can do in combat. I can run, I can do I can walk somewhere, I can do a kind of a quick thing, whatever, and okay, and then we're going. And then of course there's that tension of, well, we're an initiative, something's happening imminently. So what are you going to do? But you don't know what. Touching or harming the god, it does not react as long as the gold god chains bind it. If the deity is unchained, it awakens, and the characters may try to talk to it. Characters who received the dreadful visions have a +1 bonus to hit the Forlorn God. The Forlorn God speaks without emotion. It wants to be free and start a new cult around itself. It needs a herald of its word of evil, or heralds, multiple. The deity will look favorably towards early acolytes like the characters. The characters that accept becoming its acolytes, a chaotic choice, receive an unholy blessing that heals them of 1d4 hit points each dusk. That's nice. In exchange, the characters must start a pilgrimage lasting 1 year to show the god chains to the people and announce that the Forlorn God is free. The characters can only pretend to accept its offer and leave with the god chains. This way, they will not enjoy the blessing, and the evil deity will be free to wreak havoc on the region and grow in power. See the aftermath session. Why can they? I would totally allow the players to absolutely do this. I don't know why you would say that. Why would you say they can only pretend? I'm fine with them getting the blessing. I feel like that's a bad note. Don't take that note out of there. If your party wants to take it, let them do it. Magnus says they may have missed this earlier. How do lawful chaotic choices work mechanically? Not very familiar with old school essentials. There's not too much mechanical about them, Magnus. There's essentially, it's kind of like you're on what cosmic team you're on. They don't have a lot of input. They don't have the BX style, which mimics what's in the white box. There's no morality really attached to it. I mean, obviously, there's kind of an inherent implied morality of law being good and chaos being bad, but ultimately, they're not. But they might affect things like protection spells. I forget if BX has the alignment languages from the white box, but in the 3 brown books, there was literally an alignment language you could speak, and if you spoke the alignment language, anything of opposite alignment would attack you, kind of thing. And then also magic items. And again, I'm forgetting what's in BX specifically versus what's in the white box, but magic items, if you try to wield a magic item of opposite alignment, it'll shock the crud out of you. So, no, there's no percent. So Magnus asks, wasn't sure if there was a mechanic where your character is percent law, percent chance. Nope. It's kind of, it's really, that's one of those things that maybe they should have done that, because that's one of the things I think turned people off of alignment, is that it could feel very much, what's the word I'm looking for? It could feel it just like your alignment changes and you didn't know how close you were. A GM will suddenly say, "Haha, you've done this thing. You're now chaotic," and you're like, "How did this happen? Like what?" So no, they never gave any guidance to that there's no meta currency or attribute to measure it. You're just in chaos, law, or neutral, and there are certain effects. So when this adventure says it's a chaotic act, you can take it a couple ways. One, you can say that only chaotic players could do that. That's not the one I would do, but that could be some. Some people will say, nope, you're a lawful character. You can't do that. That's not lawful. Or that doing this act will turn you to chaos. Like, yes, you can do this, but you are going to become chaos after that, because this is, you're freeing a chaotic god. That kind of makes sense. Magnus says good and evil are very subjective, especially in this day and age. So I think sticking to this law or chaos for role playing is the best. Yeah, I mean, I also feel like this day and age is you can't really compare it because everything we know about religion is it's all faith, so to speak, right? You're in a world where gods of different things are literally running around actively. For the most part, obviously, you're setting miles may vary, but they're actively running around making proclamations. They have clerics. They're promoting it, so it works a little bit differently. I don't think that our role playing games need to have the same shades of gray that we have because there's depending on what you believe about what's going to happen in the afterlife. We don't know of anything that happens when we do this or that other than what we put on ourselves. But in a fantasy game where you literally have different gods, it can totally be an objective thing. But whatever works for you, whatever works for you in your game. But I totally would let them take the offer. I would not make it a fakery. I mean, if they say they're being fake about it, I don't know, but I feel like the Forlorn God would probably know. And it doesn't seem like you can fight the Forlorn God. I mean, obviously it says if you took the... No, I guess you can, because it says that if you took the Dreadful Visions, you have a bonus to hit it. So there must be some stats we're going to find out that maybe will tell us something. Then we have the God Chains. Powerful magical artifact. Any creature bound by the God Chains loses all its powers and falls into a cataleptic state. The creature can't be damaged, and it does not suffer from hunger, thirst, lack of air, etc. Yet it still grows old if subject to aging. The party needs a combined strength of 20 to carry the God Chains, so you need a couple of people. Now, the Aftermath. Based on the actions taken by the characters, this section presents the epilogues and consequences of their choices. All right, so we have some things. What happens if you do different things? Notice we don't have... So, Azarhorn... So, I feel like this is left a little bit... I think we need a little bit more. I would like a little bit more, because the whole point here is Azarhorn wants the God Chains, and then he's going to kill the party, but we don't have where... It just kind of goes to, oh, and now we're at the epilogue, or the Aftermath. And maybe a note of where Azarhorn would try to do the murder. Or is he going to do it right in that room? If the party became acolytes of the Forlorn God, would he let Azarhorn, or it let Azarhorn just chomp him up? I don't know. I'd like to know a little bit more of when Azarhorn... Or would Azarhorn kill them when he gets into the room? I think I'd like a little bit of, well, where's... Because it's mentioned at the beginning that he's going to double cross them, but then we don't get really a sense of where. Okay. So that's the Aftermath. Then we have new monsters. So the Forlorn God's got AC 4, 9 hit dice with 3 asterisks, 54 hit points. Only 1 attack, though. Just his fist. Got some saves. Let's see. No one remembers the name of this ancient minor deity of chaos anymore. The clerics of yore worked hard to erase every trace of its existence. In its earthly incarnation, it stands 18 feet tall, humanoid... Or it is an 18-foot tall humanoid on whose body dozens of drooling mouths and swollen eyes open. I see. So a hungry mouth. With a 17 plus on the attack roll, it draws the target into one of the mouths, covering its body for D3 automatic damage per round, plus a -1 penalty to attacks. Target can escape with a strength check. Rage. It's got a kind of a rage ability like a barbarian-ish type, and then it has unholy flesh, which halves all non-magical damage, but it will take extra damage from lawful divine spells. The Hill Horror, okay, so that kind of looks like a horse. The creature the yokels dubbed the Hill Horror was once the proud mount of the Forlorn God. It looks like a huge horse with hands instead of hooves, curved horns, and a mane of 1,000 tiny writhing wolves. So worms. So you get a little, you can have a little, what is it, a reunion. So we have stats for the jailer. Once the high priest of the Forlorn God, the clerics of yore condemned him to eternal unrest as the jailer for his former master. The jailer's task is to stalk and kill anyone entering the dungeon. The soul wanders in eternal pain and remembers nothing of its past. So it's immune to anything but silver and magic. It's got armor AC 2, 6 asterisk hit dice, 27 hit points. It's got a touch attack, which does damage and does energy drain. So on energy drain, that's old school. Successfully hit target, permanently loses 1 experience level. So you don't want to hit it. You don't want it to hit you. If it drops to 0, it reforms with full HP after 1 hour. If the Forlorn God dies, the jailer stops reforming, and it's undead and makes no noise until it attacks. It is immune to effects that affect living creatures. It's immune to mind, right? So this is undead, basically. But it can be turned. It's got 6 hit dice, though, so have fun with that. And then we got the maps. So it's this is a straight ahead, right? Straight ahead. It's a straight ahead dungeon crawl. A little bit. I like the fact they give you the village, and of course, what I like a little bit more wilderness stuff, sure, but that's not really what this is. That's not what they're trying to do. So I don't mind that we don't get that aspect of it. It's one of those things that it's almost standard dungeon design. You're led to a place under false pretenses, either purposefully. It doesn't seem like Azarhorn actually knows it knows what it wants. It knows it wants the god chains, but it doesn't. I think it's implied, or I think it might be explicit that it doesn't know that there's a god thing down here. It just wants the god chains. We don't know. We never learned why Azarhorn wants the god chains. I don't think. I'm going to go back up and look at it really quick. So I think that's something I might want to fill in. Let's see. So let's read what it says about Azarhorn now that we've kind of gotten the whole width and breadth of the dungeon. This level of magic users mid-50s. Okay. Unlike most practitioners of the arcane arts, he's quite a stocky build. He wears a long bow. All right, that's fine. Okay, that's not Azarhorn. Okay, so here we go. Azarhorn on behavior. Azarhorn knows the truth about the Forlorn God's history in prison. While the party is in the hills, Azarhorn does not intervene in combat except to defend himself. He won't lift a finger, even if the characters are about to die. He considers it a test to see if he chose the right people to escort him into the dungeon. While in the dungeon, Azarhorn helps the characters who are about to die. In any case, the wizard casts his most powerful spells only to defend himself. All right, I could have sworn it says... Oh, hold on a minute. Azarhorn has promised the party a decent reward plus anything they wish to raid in the sanctuary. He tells the party... I didn't see a whole bunch of loot in the sanctuary, though. And that might just be part of his lies. But, there's the rapier if you can get it out and some other things. But there's not a ton of gold in there. He plans to retrieve the god chains and then kill the characters once they're necessary. And Azarhorn has no idea. Oh, I see. So he must know about the Forlorn God, but I guess he doesn't know how dangerous it is to free him, which seems... If there's a god chained in a place... I think you'd have a pretty good sense. That's bad. I almost feel like they could make it because we don't know why he wants the god chains. And on the one hand, you can look and say, hey, that's cool because that's just if he escapes with the god chains, then you have your next adventure potentially, as whatever he does with them is happening while the Forlorn God is doing something else. And maybe if that becomes a whole campaign of we got to we let this genie out of this bottle. Now we got to try to figure out how to get the genie back in the bottle. It also might make sense if Azarhorn either wants to, I don't know, like what is his greater ambition with it, and maybe relate that to the Forlorn God in some way, because it seems like he just wants the god chains, and the Forlorn God is just an extra. That's just a side effect. And then, of course, but we don't know what he wants with them, and then we know he wants to kill the characters once he's gotten it, but the adventure ends essentially with... Oh yeah, and the party, right? The party's at the party goes and they meet the Forlorn God. The end. So I don't know. So I wonder where this stuff is. Like, they have these events like the characters kill or arrest Azarhorn. Well, but where? When does that happen? And Azarhorn is the new owner of the god chains, but how he can't. It takes a strength of 20 to lift and carry the god chains. So he literally cannot carry them by himself. He needs somebody, at least a character, with him to carry it. And so I'd like a little bit of space here to say, okay, now when you get to the prison, is that where Azarhorn turns after you've unlocked the god chains for him? And then you got some interesting stuff with the Forlorn God and Azarhorn and something going on. That might make a really nice, could be a really kind of fun finale with some different things. But the adventure as written doesn't provide that for you. You're gonna have to bring that in. Ultimately, though, it's a fun, you know. How often do the party end up doing something or being in a place they're not really supposed to because they were under false pretenses or incomplete information, and they are. Azarhorn is interesting because it seems pretty clear he's a bad guy, and when you're adventuring with him for any amount of time, if you're playing him the way, especially the way he's written to be very self-centered, using dark magics and not helping anybody do anything, it should be pretty clear this is a bad guy. So I don't know if that means that if the party is like, this guy's a bad guy and this guy, a bad guy, hired us to do something, maybe we shouldn't do what he's hiring us to do. I don't know if that would enter into it. It'd be kind of interesting. Obviously, I haven't sat on any play test sessions, and I haven't run or played it myself, so I'm not sure how the party will deal with that. If they're like, we don't care, good, evil, the coin's all the same, or if it means that the party might sense this it's this backstab, this double cross might be kind of obvious because it comes down. Because if your party is kind of neutral or good, or just not really evil, then it seems like it won't take too long for them to figure out that, hey, why isn't this guy helping? His magic seems to be dark. He seems to be kind of brooding over there. Not sure. It's very well put together. I really love the layout. I have quibbles about the maps, the kind of mini maps. I'd like them to be a little bit nice if they have a little bit more to it, like put the room numbers in there, especially when sometimes in the little display boxes, if you will, there's more than one room showing up. Make sure we know what room we're in. You could probably, sometimes where the rooms have a big single feature in them, you can easily put the feature in there. I don't think without mucking it up. So it might be nice to have it in there, especially when it might help you count off things like distances and things like that. Might be nice. But it's well done. Thanks, Andrea, for sending this over to me, and I like the way it slots in. It'd be a really good. I can see this being a really fun one shot in particular with the sort of setup. Right, you can just kind of get to it and just let shenanigans go loose. It could be a good campaign starter with the fact that now you might have this mid to high level magic user with magical god chains on the loose. Like I said, I'd like to know more about what the god chains do when you're not chaining somebody there, or maybe give him a plan. But you can always obviously slot that into your own campaign, because now there's a really powerful artifact that can imprison basically anything, including a god. So let that loose and see who would want that. Who may have Azarhorn might have their eyes on, or who is employing Azarhorn, right? Who's the man behind the man? Who's the evil behind the evil? And of course, despite what the adventure says, I would totally allow my party to become acolytes of the Forlorn God and do a pilgrimage, and that could be a ton of fun with a lot of stuff, especially if people come to try to take the god chains away from them, or maybe some of those clerics of yore are out there still, some descendants, all kinds of good stuff happening there. So a fun, solid standard adventure, some good stuff. Some of the puzzles I think are maybe a little bit too puzzly. They might leave kind of, I don't know, fictional logic behind in terms of the puzzle, but good stuff, well worked together. I really like this layout, man. This layout's nice. The art is great. Everything is super clear, and I think it delivers pretty much what it promises. Like 2 to 3 sessions, I guess, depending on how interactive things are and what you get to, and a really nice, good kind of potentially adventure that you just run on its own, or like I said, there definitely see where you can take this and expand upon it with your own stuff. As Magnus says, seems like a fun, flavorful little adventure indeed. And there are links to it in the show notes if you want to grab it off of drive-thru. I think I saw earlier it was $2.99. I don't know if there's print versions available. Maybe there will be in the future. Anyhow, as I'm recording this on a Friday, have a great rest of your weekend. If you're listening or watching this later, then have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up checking this out. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.